Hi, it's Alaska Granny. As preppers, we like to have the basic baking supplies on hand. Perhaps you like to use Bisquick or biscuit mix. I've noticed that there is far less of it in the store lately. I went to my local Walmart here in Alaska recently, and the only baking mix they had were a few boxes of a few different kinds on the very bottom shelf in the baking aisle, which that's not a lot of product to choose from. I remember there used to be several shelves of these different types of products, and they were at eye level, not down on the bottom where you have to practically crawl around to see what's available and how much it is. Plus there were just a few packages of each different type. So we can still get those items to use on a day-to-day basis. Do we want to store those long term? Can they last? And the answer, in my opinion, is no. Simply because once you start combining ingredients, the ingredient that would go rancid or spoiled first is going to contaminate all of the other ingredients. Baking mixes include oils. Oils turn rancid. They just don't last. We can't store them indefinitely. We need to rotate those. So we don't want to store foods that include oils for long term because they're just not going to last. If you really wanted to store Bisquick or biscuit mix long term, you can find it in packages already sealed professionally to last by Goshen Farms, and you can see that it can last for 10 years. So see, it's still not going to last completely. And if you look carefully at the label, it says buttermilk, no leavening, biscuit mix. Long-term food storage companies like Goshen Farms understands that things like baking powder lose their consistency. They lose the ability to leaven your biscuits, your breads, your pancake mixes, whatever it is that you're using your baking powder into doesn't have a shelf life forever. So if you really want to store something longer term, look for something that's already prepared, but then read carefully because you have to add the leavening agents into it. A lot of the Goshen Farms and other brands of long-term food storage are simply add water. But if you look on the directions, the biscuit mix, you need to actually also add the baking powder. So if you can't store Bisquick or biscuit mix long term, what can you do so you can have it, especially if it's not available in the store and it's a product that you enjoy using? You can store the actual basic ingredients that are used to make Bisquick or biscuit mix. Individual ingredients are going to last for many years. You can have those on hand, and then you have those ingredients, the basic baking supplies, for all types of different recipes. And then if you wanted to mix up some biscuit mix, you can. These are the basic ingredients that go into biscuit mix or Bisquick. The first basic ingredient in biscuit mix is flour. Here's the price of what it is at the Walmart here in Alaska lately, and you can see the shelves were a little bit bare on flour, but it was available. I store extra flour in gallon, canning, or mason jars, and I seal them up and keep them in my prepper pantry. Then when I need flour in my working pantry, I take one of the jars, I put it into the working pantry, and now I purchase this bag to replace the jar of flour that I have used. And that's how you want to do it. Don't skip that step. If you need more flour, buy it, but then don't just put that directly into your pantry. Take that flour out of your prepper pantry or your food storage stockpile, put that in your working pantry and replace that. And then you have used it, rotated, and replaced your food, and that's how you have the best success with food storage. The next ingredient would be powdered sugar. Now I have some powdered sugar stored away, but I also am storing extra granulated sugar. You can make your own powdered sugar by blending granulated sugar into the blender, and it grinds it up finer so that it's powdered sugar. I made a video on how to do that, and I'll put a link to how to make powdered sugar so that you can try that if you need to. But it is simple to have a bag of powdered sugar on hand as well. But granulated sugar, in my opinion, is the most useful, and that's why I have purchased another bag of this. I'm going to store the granulated sugar into a gallon-sized mason jar, and then as I need it, I rotate, and replace it. The next basic ingredient in Bisquick or baking mix is baking powder. So get a fresh can of baking powder, but realize it doesn't last forever. I made a video on how to tell if your baking powder is still active and useful. Is it still good to use? I'll put a link to that video so you can check it out. So have the baking powder, but you can also make your own baking powder with baking soda and cream of tartar. If you have these two ingredients, you can make baking powder when you need it. I'll put a link to the video I made on how to make your own baking powder. Bisquick or baking mix also needs salt, so make sure you have plenty of salt in your food storage stockpile. Then you need oil. I like to use canola oil, but you can use the oil of your choice. Oil isn't going to last forever, so make sure that you are rotating the oils that you have in your stockpile. Some kinds last longer than others, but this is the one that I choose. You choose the oils that you prefer. So here's an easy recipe for how to make your own Bisquick or baking mix. You're going to stir together 6 cups of flour, 3 tablespoons of baking powder, 2 tablespoons of powdered sugar, 1 1/2 teaspoon of salt, 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda, and 9 tablespoons of canola oil. That's the recipe that I use, and I have had great success with that. And then you have your own Bisquick or biscuit mix. You can store it in an airtight container in your pantry along with your other flour, sugar, pancake mix, waffle mixes, baking mixes. You have that already mixed up then to use, but it isn't going to store long term. But you can have it stored ready to use or mix it up when you want it, because if you have your basic baking supplies, then you're able to turn it into all different kinds of ingredients and meals that you might want to make for your family. So don't be fretting if you can't find Bisquick or biscuit mix, and don't try to store foods that aren't designed to last long term. We can want foods to last longer, but they really aren't going to. Things just start to decay. They rot, they spoil, they go rancid. That's just how food is. Nothing lasts forever. Have you heard that before? I bet you have. And different kinds of foods are the same. Some foods last longer than others, and that's why if we store the basic ingredients, we can go ahead and have that food available when we want it. Let us know in the comments below, are you finding foods available? Are the prices going up? That's been my experience, and so it seems like a great idea to continue to add to your food storage stockpile. But remember, don't buy foods you don't use. Use, rotate, replace those foods. And if there's foods that you find you're not really using anymore, use them up, get rid of them, replace them with something that you do enjoy using. Don't just leave food languishing in the back of the pantry because nobody really wants to eat it. Figure out, why did I buy it? How can I use it? And how can I maybe disguise it and get it out of here and then replace it with something that's more useful? I hope you'll like my video, share it, and please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.